Hello and welcome. My name is Anne Green, my business support coach, and I'm a transformation coach. On behalf of Work Matters at the Library, I want to share my top 10 tips on interviewing for success. As a transformation coach, I get to work with businesses on recruiting their staff, so I look at recruitment, retention, progression, and succession with the business leaders. I also work with clients on changing and transforming their careers. So a lot of my time is spent preparing people for interviews, but also sitting on both sides of the interview desk. I've changed my own career 5 times throughout my working life. So I've sat on the other side of that interview as well, a lot of the times. And if I'm honest with you, no matter which side of the desk you're on, sometimes it can be a little bit uncomfortable. So if you're going into an interview, think about the interviewer as well. You might feel nervous, they might as well. It's really important for them to make the best decision for the company or for the role they're trying to fill. So helping them to feel comfortable is a really big part of this. Anyway, I will share my top 10 through some slides. My first tip is your presence. Did you know it takes between 2 and 7 seconds to make a first impression on somebody? So they'll have made their mind up within less than 7 seconds most of the time. So it's really important to make a good first impression. And smile and warmth all add up to that great first impression. The eye contact you have with people as well, and the non-verbal body language that you show. So how you hold yourself, all add to that sense of presence. If you're meeting somebody face-to-face and outside of COVID, then a handshake is a really powerful way to make a connection with somebody. Strong handshake, and making sure that your hand is dry and not sticky beforehand. If you are having a virtual meeting, then think about things like lighting in advance. Make sure your light is ahead of you, in front of you, not behind you. I've met with a lot of people that light is behind them and it makes it really difficult to see them. So check it out beforehand. Also check your technology in advance. Make sure that it's working well. Make sure that you can log on to the call, that is working, because all of those things, once you know and you have that certainty, will help your confidence through the interview. Your posture, so making sure that you sit up at all stages. I find it really handy as well to have a tissue, keeping one to hand. It just gives you something to hold in your hand and take some of the nerves away. A glass of water is really helpful as well, both in a virtual situation and if you go into an interview as well. So asking for that glass of water if you're at an interview is really handy because it gives you a moment to stop, take a breath, think about your answer, take a sip of water, and then answer the question. Your phone is an odd one in these days because a lot of virtual calls, people can take them on their phone. So make sure that you've turned off anything that can distract you through your call. Let other people know that you're going to have an interview at this time, so nobody tries to call you at the same time. If you're meeting in a face-to-face meeting, turn your phone off. Turn anything off that can possibly distract you so that your meeting just becomes about meeting that person or those people. Dress to impress. I would say always, no matter what the culture of the company, even if it's a dress down culture, always dress up. When you dress well, you look well. When you look well, you feel good. So all of that adds to your own confidence. Dress also for comfort. Try not to buy something new that you haven't worn before and you're not too sure about. Because if you're wearing something that you know you'll be comfortable in, that adds to your confidence. If you're on a virtual call, then I would still say go for that top to toe look. Dress from the top to toes. Sometimes somebody has to stand up and they might look perfectly dressed from their shoulders up. But when they stand up, they're wearing jeans or leggings. And it just kind of lets the tone down a little bit. Also remember as well, If you do need to stand up, is there anything behind you that might distract the interviewer? So check your background. Sometimes we forget to listen. And there's a saying that says the reason we have two of these and one of these is so that we can gather as much information as possible. All of the information that your interviewer tells you, all of her questions, all of the things he might say to you, all of those are clues. So think of information as clues to how to answer the questions in the best way. Listen with your eyes as well as your ears. So watching the body language of the other person. Do they look comfortable? Do they look pleased? Do they look interested? All of those things will help you. If it's a virtual call, then think about pausing between when the interviewer has asked a question and before you start. There can be a time lag in the first place, so making sure that you allow enough time and allow a little bit of space between is really helpful. Checking your own volume as well. So if you've checked your technology in advance, you know that, okay, I can be heard well, but double check with your interviewer. Can you hear me okay? When you're talking, think about telling your story. Tell your career through your stories. I always use these two acronyms. So STAR stands for situation, task, action, and response or results. So thinking about your career stories, whatever the question is, building your answer in terms of this was the situation that happened. These were the tasks that needed to be done. These were the actions that I took. And these were the results. And those add on to your KSA, which is knowledge, skills, and ability. Knowledge stands for anything that you've learned. So any courses you've attended, your college learning, but you may not have actually practically applied it into your working skills. Your skills are things that you actively use. So things that you have learned how to use on the job or through life. And your abilities are how well you do something. So the more you do something, the better you get. Share information about your goals, not just your work goals, but also personal goals. It shows a lot about how you plan and manage your own life. Be careful about rambling as well. Sometimes it can be easy to keep going. Be comfortable with ending your comment and allowing for a little bit of silence. Sometimes if there's a silence there, people will jump in and try to fill that silence with more information, and they can give a little bit too much away. So be okay with that silence. It's fine. Knowing you've given enough information. In that virtual situation, try to build it into a conversation as opposed to just interrupting. If you do happen to interrupt the person who's interviewing you, then apologize for them, but also give them that opportunity as well to take that space between when their question has ended and when your answer begins. Being professional at all stages is really important, and also being honest in your answers. Even if you can't answer something, be honest about it and let them know. Being careful of things like slang. It can be easy to use expressions like, okay, let's think of a good example here. If you're trying to say you get more value for money, you might say something like, well, you'll get more bang for your buck. But actually, saying you'll get more value for money is much better. It can't be misconstrued, or it can't be taken out of context. Using acronyms, I used some in the last slide. So things like STAR, explain them, explain what you mean by them, because sometimes the same acronym can mean something different in a different industry. A good example of that might be SME. It can mean subject matter expert. It can also mean small to medium enterprise. Also be careful about humor. Even if the person that you're meeting seems really comfortable and really friendly, just be a little bit careful about humor. An interview is still a professional environment. Be professional at all stages. Think about body language as well. If you are meeting somebody face to face, look for those opportunities to mirror the body language of your interviewer. So if they lean in a little bit, being able to do that as well. But do it appropriately and be comfortable about it. The one you may not want to mirror would be if they fold their arms, because sometimes if somebody folds their arms, it might mean that they're not that comfortable in this situation. So look for those opportunities to mirror, but mirror appropriately. Take away any distractions. I talked about your phone the last time, but anything else. Sometimes I'm interviewing somebody and they might have a pen and they start clicking it because they're nervous. So having anything like that, stick to that tissue that I've suggested earlier. Remove any distractions that can take your attention away, but it can also distract the interviewer. If you have a virtual interview, then if you need time to answer something, reframe the question in your own words. Put it back into that way of saying, I'm not quite sure what you said, but would I be correct in saying this is what you mean? So it also allows you to put a question into your words and answer it in the best way. Also remember that sounds are amplified. So anything that could be in the background could be a distraction, not only for you, but also for your interviewer. I have a dog. Oh gosh, the number of times he actually joins the conversation, not when I want him to. So if you can, remove any of those distractions, make sure those sounds are out of the way, and let people, if you're in a home environment or in another environment that again, there are other people around, let them know that you're in an interview. Your attitude is so important. And you'll find that most companies will hire people for their attitude, not just for their skills. So get an understanding of what the company culture is like so that you know that you're a good cultural fit. Because a lot of the times your interview is really to check that you will fit in with the rest of people in the company. Doing a little bit of research on how things get done in the company. That's what culture means, the way things get done in a company. Do a little bit of research on that and get an idea if it's more formal, in which case you can craft your stories in a little bit more formal manner. And you have that a little bit more of information. Your positivity and warmth. Positivity is so important. So no matter what the situation is, being able to come across with a good positive attitude. Try to create a connection with the person who's interviewing you so that it becomes a conversation, that it doesn't feel like an interview, but it becomes more like a conversation between the two of you. And things like age, politics, race, religion, anything like that, cancel them out of the conversation completely. Behavioral questions come up frequently in interviews because your interviewer wants to know, how would you react in a certain situation? And that's where your soft skills come in. So when you get a question like, what was the worst situation you've been in? Or tell me about a challenging situation. What they're trying to find out is how you behave. Again, use that STAR acronym, but this time just think of the situation. What was the situation? What were the actions that you took? And what were the responses that happened? And the results that occurred. Focus on your strengths all the time. And if you have that virtual interview, then keeping that eye contact and body language, making sure that all the time that you give the best impression of yourself. Being assertive just means being able to speak up for yourself and being comfortably confident no matter what the situation is. So if you find yourself in a situation where, again, you're not sure of the question, or you're not sure what is meant by the question, being able to ask it, that shows that you're comfortably confident. Rehearse beforehand as well. So if you have a question in your mind that could come up, being able to practice it beforehand. What do you want to say? I always think of that all-important first question that most interviewers ask. Tell me a little bit about yourself. And the number of times that people I've interviewed have started telling me about their family or things that have gone on a long time ago, or maybe about friends or personal situations. But actually what the interviewer is trying to find out is, tell me about yourself in relation to this job, this company, and this role. So practicing those beforehand can be really helpful. Power posing is another one that's really, really helpful. If you haven't watched her, check out a lady called Amy Cuddy, who will show you how to power pose before something like an interview, because it helps you go into that interview feeling comfortable and feeling confident. Making sure that you're not pushy, so not questioning too often during the interview. It's okay to have two-way conversation and questions, but not being too pushy to look for too much information. All of these show your assertiveness and your ability to be self-assured. Questioning, it's a two-way street. So being curious about both the role and the company is really important. But think of questions as well as anytime a question is being asked, what's the question behind the question? And make sure that no matter what your answer is, that all the time you're thinking of the value that you can bring to the company, the value that your skills will bring, and how you can support the company in this role. It's okay to ask questions about the role and the company. Is it a new role? If it's a new role, why has it been created? It'll give you an idea of, again, what are the challenges for the company that a new role has been put in place. If it's an existing role, it's also okay to ask, why is the person leaving? From that, you get an idea of, will you have a chance to work with this person if you're successful? Being able to ask what your success timeline is. In other words, what will be the things that I'm going to be measured on in the first month, 2 months, 3 months, if I'm successful in getting this job? Always think of the interviewer's perspective. Step into their shoes. What's the question behind their question? And it's really important just to focus on this job, because some people are really looking towards, they want to rush ahead. What are my opportunities for progression? Are there opportunities for promotion? But stay focused on this job, because that's really where the company want to know you're going to fit in, this job. Questions like salary or benefits. It's okay to answer them if the question comes up or if you've been asked, but don't ask them yourself. The C's are really important. Showing that you're confident just means that you're cool and calm under pressure. Let's face it, interviews can be a little bit nerve-wracking, so it's okay to be that little bit nervous. If you are, let the interviewer know if you think that's okay. I think things like that really help to build that human connection with people. And I know certainly in interview situations, I've really liked it when somebody's been able to say that to me. I'm a little bit nervous about this. This isn't a normal situation for me. It does help to build that bridge and build that relationship. Clarifying the next steps and the results timeline. These are really important ones for you, just to get an understanding. How will I know that I'm successful in this round of the interview? Are there more interviews coming? In which case, when would you hope to have made a decision? And when will you let me know if I've been successful? When do you hope to have somebody in place for this role? That's what I mean by the results timeline. And before you end off your interview, always to make that connection that says, thank you so much for your time. It's been really nice to meet with you. Checking with them, are there any next steps as well that you should think about or should know? If it's a virtual meeting, check if they have any more questions for you before you log off. So those were my top 10 tips. Thank you for your time today. My name is Anne Green. These are my details. And on behalf of Work Matters at the library, good luck if you have an interview coming up.